Hi there, heroes! For today's adventure, I'll be taking you on a journey to Food Not Bombs. Let's start with their origin story. Founded in 1980 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Food Not Bombs got its start as a series of bake sales by a collection of 8 anti-nuclear activists who were hoping to raise funds to assist a friend who had been arrested during an occupation of the local power station. The juxtaposition of the public housing projects across the street from the huge new glass tower where scientists were designing nuclear missiles inspired the group to make that dichotomy an inherent part of their message. Serving food became an integral part of their actions moving forward, alongside political education, street demonstrations, and other forms of vital support to help people to better imagine a world where providing for the hungry took precedence over continuing to fund the weapons of war. Across the course of the next 45 years, Food Not Bombs would spread across the globe to over 1,000 cities in 65 different countries, bound together by 3 core principles. Number 1, always vegan or vegetarian and free to everyone.
This chapter got started when I asked a bunch of friends if they wanted to cook food.
We've served anywhere between 40 to 75, maybe more people. When we would serve outside, it could be even more because it was very accessible. We would serve in the park.
Prepared food during the summer, it's like cold salads and sandwiches and things. During the winter, we try to do hot meals as often as possible.
Food is a human need that should be provided to everyone, and that we shouldn't have these systems that are taking people's creative and productive outputs and turning it towards these systems of weapons and private property and control.
We also have produce and bread to give out, both of which are culled and donated from local businesses. So everything that is still serviceable we give to the community because there's so much food that is thrown out across the board by grocery stores, no matter how big or small they are. So that's part of our mission, is reducing food waste by either cooking or distributing food that would otherwise be thrown away.
Number 2, each chapter is independent and autonomous and makes decisions using the consensus process.
So what that means, it's very hard in practice because of how much of the rest of our society is very hierarchical, and a lot of things are based on majority rule. So consensus means knowing how to compromise, knowing when you can live with a decision even if you don't like it so much, or knowing when you have to say, if we make this decision, I would consider leaving the group because that's how strongly I disagree with it.
We do try to stick with being non-hierarchical. It's actually something we've tried to focus on.
Most Food Not Bombs are fairly small, and so the way that their consensus manifests is it's kind of just a bunch of friends and co-activists and comrades who see each other fairly regularly anyway, and they just talk about what they want to cook this week, or how they want to help a local organization out.
Number 3, Food Not Bombs is not a charity and is dedicated to non-violent social change.
It's a fairly simple organization that is very malleable and adaptable to the needs of a community.
What's presented to us as normalcy and peace and what is imperialist slaughter abroad is not, these aren't separate things, these are like tangled at the root.
It is not a 501c3. And intentionally so, because one of the sort of like mantras is solidarity, not charity. We are here as community members helping our own community.
We cooked for the Occupy Wall Street movement that occurred here.
In the midst of the pandemic and all of the protests and uprisings in 2020, there were lots of things I was like, okay, I want to be able to be doing something tangible and actionable with the time and the privilege that I have.
But to learn more, I decided to become part of the group myself.
Hi, my name is Jake. I'm interested in learning more about the organization and possibly getting involved.
As of this November, I've been involved with Food Not Bombs for 5 years.
Well, about 10 years now.
About probably 2.5 years ago, I moved to this area and met the Food Not Bombs folks and started sometimes volunteering at serving.
And then I joined when I had just moved to a new city and I was living by myself. And I was working a completely remote job, and so I was not really leaving my apartment very much, and wanted to figure out how to meet new people in this city that I was like vaguely familiar with but didn't know many people in it.
I first got involved via word of mouth and finding them on social media, messaging them.
Oh, awesome.
I know that there was like
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, fantastic. I know there was like an informational meeting on Sunday, apparently, that I wasn't able to make it to. And
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
I was wondering if there might be a good time when I might be able to meet up and talk to somebody to learn more and learn about how I can help out.
The way we kind of divide up, like, our work is by working group. So, like, for example, we have a transportation working group that gets everything that we need to where it needs to go, because we don't have kitchen space where we distribute the food and the supplies. Obviously, cooking crew, serving crew, really anything. And if people are interested in their own special things, like, you know, photography or, like, graphic arts or really anything, there's room for getting creative.
We've attracted a lot of people, which is good and also creates more complexity to how we organize and operate.
We have a system of bottom liners, which I think of as like a point person.
A bottom liner is a person who is taking on a little extra responsibility in making sure things get done, as well as communicating what needs to get done. And it's not the same as maybe like a manager or a boss in the typical term.
For cooking, I'm very involved in cooking. I know a lot about how it works, but I am not telling people what to do. I am not assigning people tasks. But if there are new volunteers who come and say, oh, I'm interested in cooking, can you tell me more about it? Then people would direct them to me because I know a lot of the nitty-gritty details.
So I would say that our structure tries to be kind of a rotating, a roster, if you will, a rotating roster of folks who are able to devote their time to being able to be a bottom liner. We give out food, hygiene products, hand warmers, pretty much supplies that are seasonal.
Menstrual products, hand sanitizer, diapers, laundry detergent. During the summer, we'll give out sunscreen and bug spray. During the winter, we'll have hand and toe warmers and hats and gloves, anything like that. And safer sex supplies when we can provide those as well. Other things that we do, we'll have fundraisers roughly twice a year. We'll do DIY craft nights or skill shares. We've done different like volunteer projects of going to local farms and animal sanctuaries.
One thing that can be easy to forget is just how often we take things for granted. Like, when I was looking over options for transportation, I noticed that just about everything was within only a few minutes of the main serving location, and didn't really make a whole lot of sense for me to be driving over half an hour and spend that extra gas when there were so many other people who lived so much closer. But then I realized that many of the people involved were living in an urban area and didn't necessarily have access to a car. I live in the suburbs. I have to drive everywhere. So that's something that I can contribute that not necessarily everyone else can. Just like there are other people who can make it to cooking and serving sessions that I generally can't do because I've got 2 very young kids at home and I work a full-time job and my spouse works weekends. There's a certain level of complementarity to that, as you're reminded of what it means to be a part of a mutual aid organization.
I have my hands in a lot of pots, so organizing meetings, I do cooking occasionally.
I've helped coordinate efforts in different projects in Food Not Bombs, like cleaning out our spaces. I've, helped coordinate efforts to put stuff together for some of our events before.
I do mostly a lot of cooking, both in our communal cooking sessions and in solo cooking, which we started because of the pandemic, where people like cook meals and package them up at home.
Sometimes doing delivery to a few, food delivery to a few households where people couldn't make it in person.
I've led political education discussions. I've done new volunteer orientations.
I've helped with acquiring tools to use for events like generators, communication with getting everything put together for an event.
But I also help with our transportation shifts. I help to facilitate meetings. I help with orientations. So there's lots of different of our like regular operations that I've helped out in.
I've done a bit of everything in Food Not Bombs.
I can kind of see what's going on in different parts of the organization and understand how I can contribute to helping.
There are other things that you can do besides just getting the food together and getting it to the people who need it. I've got a background in graphic design. I've done theatrical design, direction and production management. I can coordinate people online. I'm a teacher who's taught classes online. And, of course, I've got video production experience. And I've got a platform.
Yeah, I saw you posting about, in the Food Not Bombs group chat about what you were doing, and it sounded like a cool project.
Again, we're an entirely volunteer organization, so there's lots of turnover of people like coming in and helping out for a year or two, and then they move, or with students, they get super busy. So I feel like it's a lot of, I try to pass on like what institutional knowledge I have.
No one is getting paid for their time. We are not a charity. We are completely mutual aid based.
It's just down to community members feeling what they think is necessary for their community. And every community is different with how they operate and how they need things.
So I'm trying to use my platform to show you all the different ways that you can get involved. To show you that no matter how powerless you may feel in today's world, you still have something to contribute. And it might not be what you expect. It might be something you've taken for granted, something inconsequential. But the first step is reaching out.
Whatever your own comfort and health needs are, put that first, ask questions, and like...
You don't have to really commit to anything. You can show up once, and if the vibes are weird, you can dip. It's so easy to just never show up again.
Come not necessarily as a volunteer at first, but to just come and eat with us and sit with us and take in the community.
We will take as much or as little time and energy as you want to or can give. So if that's once a week or multiple times a week, that's amazing. That's not at all what we're expecting though.
Yeah. I actually went down from I probably was devoting 5 hours a week, 5 to 8 hours a week, give or take, when I was unemployed and underemployed to Food Not Bombs. Now that I work full time, I'm trying to take more breaks, trying to prevent burnout.
If it's once a month, that's great. If it's a few times a year, that's great. If it's once a year, that's great. We have some people who were members early on, have since moved away, but whenever they visit here, they'll still come and help out.
A major focus of mine has been like, right, how do we become more resilient and make our community events more accessible?
If you feel that there is something stopping you, I would say just ask the group that, and maybe we can work with you on it, because we're always looking to get more people involved in creating this sort of intentional community.
And I get that it can be scary putting yourself out there, especially given our current political climate. Certain Food Not Bombs groups in certain jurisdictions where feeding the homeless is treated as a crime have faced legal consequences.
It is true that there are locations in Florida, specifically San Francisco and California, where Food Not Bombs members were arrested. However, it is an exceedingly rare event.
People that folks here know who are down south, like in Texas and stuff, have faced a lot of that kind of repression. To my knowledge, that hasn't happened against Food Not Bombs specifically here.
The one time something like that did come up with this iteration in our chapter was someone at the Department of Health reaching out and saying, hey, we know you're not selling food, we know you're just giving out food.
Right.
As long as you tell people you are giving food to your group's members and that is a member meeting, that's okay.
Historically, we haven't had issues with law enforcement.
I think also we have lots of infrastructure and documentation about our food safety practices. So if they want to get really nitty gritty about that, we can tell them everything we do for food safety. We can tell them about the orientations we run to ensure that people are following food safety practices.
There is still a lot of, repressive, like police repression against just other just poor people's culture and public existence.
I think, I would hope anyway, that there would be pushback from the community if we did face any legal repercussions for feeding people with food that otherwise would have been thrown out. That is perfectly good food.
Historically, for this group, in the 20 years on and off that different chapters have been operating, so I think our first chapter started in 1999, and it's gone through iterations, so the most recent iteration is 10 years old. All that aside, I would say that our concern for arrest is pretty low.
We are also in a blue city, in a blue county, in a blue state, so again, not to say that we're fully protected, but we are under less scrutiny and less cultural pressure, I think, than places in, for example, Houston, I think, which got daily and weekly citations, hundreds of them with fines attached to them.
But even if Food Not Bombs might not be the right fit for you, it can still connect you to other people and help you find common cause in other ways. Like, the location where we serve food is also partnered with a bunch of other social justice groups, and there can often be overlap between members.
The library knows we're here, other groups know that we're here, they know what services we provide, and they refer people to come here for a free meal.
Putting together slides for presentations or putting together communications to send out to other organizations or individuals we want to work with, or reaching out to other folks.
If you want to do something different, if you want to do something in a different vein, with a different tactic, cool.
Air Justice Lab has been doing really interesting work also because they started with putting out air quality monitors around the schools.
Additionally, we've also offered food support and meal support and labor support for like-minded organizations such as the Poor People's Campaign.
Mask Block, they have the free rapid tests too available.
So the Free Store, we help coordinate with them. It's technically a separate entity, but it operates in this same space.
You go to celebrate845.com, which is a disability arts and culture.
You can bring items, you can take items, you don't have to pay for anything. It's not even like a swap or barter, it's just everything is free.
Something else we've done in the past are called struggle sandwiches, wherein we would make roasted vegetable sandwiches for protests. And so we would go to a protest we hear is going on, and we just hand out a bunch of sandwiches to hungry activists.
There are so many ways that you can be a superhero.
Who is your favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? Yeah. Oh man, I'd have to think about this one.
Okay.
Oh man, I have to think about this one.
I feel like I'm gonna have a very niche and very silly answer to this because I didn't I watched the Michael Keaton Batman movies growing up, so I do really like the campier superhero stuff.
He's a classic, but like I said, in current times with him being a billionaire, beating people up, operating outside of his jurisdiction.
Spider-Man is kind of the embodiment of New York City, and I kind of appreciate that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would say Spider-Man would be my second favorite.
Oh yeah, he's a man of the people.
I'm gonna go with Captain Laserbeam, even though he's not a very good superhero.
I was super into Inuyasha though. I don't think that counts as a superhero because what does he do?
He's got demon powers.
He's got demon power. He's not. He's like a crazy anti-hero though. I don't know.
Yeah. He's acting outside the system. I think that counts. So there you have it. If you would like to learn more about Food Not Bombs, you can check out their website at foodnotbombs.net for information about the nearest location, how you can help, and even how you can start your own chapter of Food Not Bombs. Plus, if you sign up for our Patreon, all proceeds for the month of March 2025 will go directly to a local chapter. Remember, the world can be a scary place, and that's why we need heroes. So until we meet again, let's all be superheroes, and I'll see you in the next adventure.